TV again, safe to talk to neighbors and relatives again without ending up in a debate.
The 2012 election is now in the books, so what have we all learned from it? We once again welcome Marquette Law School pollster Charles Franklin to the show. Welcome.
I think we've learned we don't want to see any more political commercials for a little while.
I want to quote an ad, but I won't. Any surprises here? Let's start with President Obama. What did you think of what happened?
Well, I think that the victory was more or less in line with the polls across a lot of states, but that it was not very large, but it was widespread. And as a result, we sort of knew fairly early last night where it was going. Now, granted, there are a few states like Florida, I think, is still counting, but so that was a fairly convincing victory. The nightmare scenario of the popular vote going one way, the Electoral College going the other, or the Electoral College being tied, none of that turned out,
fortunately,
which I think is a relief.
What do you think the Romney campaign did wrong?
Oh, there's so many things. I think we look for one thing when really it's a whole host of things. So you could say the Obama campaign did the first debate really wrong. You might say the Romney campaign didn't do the third debate on foreign policy as aggressively as they might. You could say that Romney should have spread the campaign to Pennsylvania and Michigan or other states before the last week of the campaign. That should have been last summer. So there's a host of these things. But I think ultimately President Obama convinced voters that his performance was good enough to warrant another term. And good enough whether because of ideological reasons you agreed with him, or good enough in terms of the economy coming back, or because you thought he had been dealt a very tough hand, and even if things hadn't happened as quickly as you wanted, had dealt with them in that tough hand.
Let's talk about another big race, the U.S. Senate race. What were the keys to victory for Tammy Baldwin?
There, the most amazing thing is how the GOP primary pulled former Governor Thompson's approval numbers down and made him fight for a nomination that he only got with 34% of the vote. But then we had a period where Baldwin was able to campaign and Thompson didn't respond, was out of money for a period. And then finally that the tone of both sides was so unremittingly negative that it damaged the images of both of the candidates. The one thing Baldwin maintained an advantage on was people said she cared about people like me, and they said Tommy Thompson did not care about people like me. That difference was really striking throughout the fall.
Let's go back to the national race and the Hispanic vote. Obama got 44% of that. I heard someone said today that there will never be another Republican in the White House unless they get that fixed.
Yeah, I think you meant Romney got 44%, right? Obama got 56 or 60, something like that. Yeah, this is a dilemma for the party that goes back to the second President Bush administration, his second term, President George W. Bush, when he pushed for immigration reform with the explicit idea that this was a way for Republicans to appeal to the largest single minority group in the country. Karl Rove saw that as a future path of the party. But within the party, there were deep divisions about immigration and how to handle undocumented workers in the country. That division persists in the party. You saw it in Mitt Romney's debate performances where he said people would self-deport. Didn't help. The party has to figure out how to stay with their principles and yet find ways to appeal to a broader swath of Americans, or you're going to have some difficulties.
Big night for gay rights in America. You saw it with Tammy Baldwin. You saw it with Mark Pocan's election. What does it all mean for this country?
I think we've moved, maybe not all the way, but part of the way to a point where sexual orientation really is just a non-issue. That's probably Pollyannish to believe we've fully gotten to that point, but campaigns can go forward without that being a big problem. And to some extent, the representation of gay folks in public life has become commonplace rather than exceptional.
Marriage equality passed in Maine and Delaware, or Maryland and Washington State.
And the first time we've seen successful passing of those things. The record had been the other way around.
And maybe now we can break the gridlock in Washington. We'll have to wait and see on that.
Hope so.
Charles, go home and get
We'll
some.
wait for that miracle for next week. How's that?
Go home and get some sleep. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.